I needed to disappear for a few days, from my phone, from emails, from people. No drama behind it, just this constant exhaustion that wouldn't go away. I booked a small cabin I found online. The host promised peace, privacy, and a perfect escape from civilization. That last part sold me. The place was buried in a patch of forest I'd never heard of, way off any main road. The last 20 minutes were on a dirt path so narrow I had to pull the side mirrors in. Trees leaned over the car like they were trying to hide me from something. I got there around 5:30 p.m. The sky was already draining color, and the temperature dropped fast under the tree cover. The cabin looked smaller in person. Old, but kind of charming. A wraparound porch, chipped green paint, and a chimney already coughing a thin trail of smoke. That made me pause. I hadn't even stepped inside yet. I figured maybe the host had stopped by to prep the place. Still, I didn't see any other cars. I parked, grabbed my bag, and walked up to the front door. The keypad worked. I punched in the code from the message and stepped inside. Inside, the air smelled faintly like wood smoke and something chemical. Cleaner, maybe. The lights were off, but enough daylight slipped through the windows to make out the space. It was all one open room. A small kitchen to the left, a couch and fireplace in the center, and a narrow hallway off to the right. I walked through slowly, just taking it in. Everything looked fine, worn but tidy. There was a coat hanging on one of the hooks near the door. Not mine. I paused. It looked damp. The tag was faded, but the collar had a fresh mud smear on it, still wet. I touched it. Cold. I called out once just to be sure. Hello? No answer. I checked the tiny bedroom. Empty. The bed was made, but one of the pillows had a clear indent in it, like someone had just been lying there. I saved the bathroom for last. When I opened the door, a warm rush of steam drifted out, thick enough to fog my glasses. The mirror above the sink was still misted over. The towel on the rack was wet. The shower tiles were dripping. Someone had just used it. I backed out of the bathroom and stood in the hallway, heart knocking against my ribs. The cabin was small, too small for someone to be hiding without me seeing them. But still, I opened every cabinet, every closet, even under the bed. Nothing. No bags, no signs of another guest. I stepped back outside to check the driveway again. My car was still the only one there. I walked the perimeter of the cabin, circling it slowly, half expecting to see footprints in the damp dirt. There weren't any. Just mine. When I got back to the porch, the door was open. I hadn't left it that way. I froze, staring at the gap, waiting for something, anything, to move. But the only sound was the wind dragging through the trees. I stepped back inside, locked the door behind me, and grabbed the fireplace poker. I kept it with me for the rest of the evening. That night I didn't unpack. I slept in my clothes, with the poker on the floor next to me and a kitchen chair propped under the doorknob. At some point during the night I woke up, not to a sound but to that feeling. The one where you're suddenly alert, heart racing, before you even know why. I sat up slowly. The cabin was completely dark. I'd forgotten to leave a light on. I reached for my phone, but it had shut off. Dead battery. That didn't make sense. I'd charged it in the car on the drive up. I grabbed the flashlight from my bag and flicked it on, sweeping the beam across the room. Everything looked exactly as I left it. But when I moved to the bathroom again, just to reassure myself, I noticed something new. A circle drawn into the condensation on the mirror. Perfectly round. Too perfect. Someone had touched that glass after I went to bed. I erased it with my sleeve, then stood there in silence. I didn't hear anything. No footsteps, no movement. But I couldn't shake the thought that someone had been in the cabin while I slept. Maybe they still were. The next morning I stepped out onto the porch just after sunrise. Everything looked peaceful, like nothing had happened. Birds chirping, sunlight cutting through the trees, that damp chill still clinging to the ground. But I didn't feel rested. My head throbbed from barely sleeping. I walked out toward the shed behind the cabin. I hadn't looked inside it yet. The padlock was hanging loose, Not locked, just resting in place. I opened the door slowly. Inside, there were 2 old chairs, a pile of firewood, and a plastic storage bin with no lid. Inside the bin were crumpled wrappers, a half-empty water bottle, and a used toothbrush. It looked like someone had been living out here. Recently, I noticed one more thing: a folded piece of paper stuck under the bin. I pulled it out. It was a handwritten note, smudged and dirty. Just one sentence written in red pen. "Don't let him know you saw him." I dropped the note like it burned. The words ran through my head again, like my brain refused to accept them the first time. Don't let him know you saw him. Who was he? And how was I supposed to pretend I didn't? Back inside, I tried to make sense of it all. The used bathroom, the coat on the hook, the pillow indent, the circle on the mirror. And now, a note warning me to play dumb. It wasn't just someone passing through. Someone had been staying here, maybe watching. I opened the guest book on the kitchen table, the kind where guests leave thank you notes and little stories. Most entries were boring. A couple mentioned noises in the woods, or power flickers. One, though, stuck with me. It just said, "Came here to be alone." I wasn't. No signature. Just that. I made coffee but didn't drink it. I couldn't stop glancing at the windows. I kept expecting to see someone's face staring back. I made a decision around noon. I was going to leave. Early, no refund. I didn't care. I couldn't stay another night. As I packed, I kept hearing things. Soft thumps, the floor creaking in the hallway when I wasn't in it. A rustle near the fireplace, like something shifting behind the wall. I tried to convince myself it was the cabin settling, or animals outside, but then I heard the shower turn on. Just for a second. A hiss. Then silence. I stood there, staring down the hallway, frozen. When I finally got the nerve to open the bathroom door, everything was dry. The mirror, the towel, all normal. But in the middle of the sink there was a single drop of water. Just one. Still trembling. I grabbed my bag and went outside. That's when I noticed it. Muddy footprints on the porch, leading to the front door. Only one set. But they weren't mine. I didn't wait. I got in the car, threw it into reverse, and peeled down the dirt road so fast I could barely dodge the branches clawing at the sides. My hands were shaking. I didn't look back. Not once. An hour later, I pulled into a gas station, grabbed my phone, and turned it back on. It lit up instantly. Full battery. No missed calls, no messages. But in my photo gallery, there was something new. A picture. It was a shot of me, asleep on the couch in the cabin, taken from the kitchen, blurry and tilted like the person was crouching. I don't remember falling asleep. I don't even remember sitting down. I stared at that photo for 10 full minutes before deleting it. I reported the listing. Airbnb said they'd investigate. The cabin was taken down 2 days later, but I still wonder what would have happened if I hadn't left. And I keep thinking about the note in the shed, the warning. Who was he? And more than that, did he know I saw him anyway? I booked the Airbnb for a work trip, small town, 2 hours out, 1 night only. Everything nearby was either a chain motel that looked grimy as hell, or vacation rentals that were absurdly oversized. This one was just a room inside someone's house. I normally avoid those, but the reviews were glowing and the host responded fast. His name was Curtis, middle-aged, local, apparently worked from home. He texted me the morning of check-in, super polite. Said he'd leave the porch light on and the key in a lockbox. "Let me know if you need anything at all," he wrote. "I'll be around, but I give guests their space." The house was nicer than I expected. Long driveway, front porch with 2 rocking chairs, quiet neighborhood surrounded by tall pine trees. I parked out front and let myself in. The living room was dim, clean, quiet. I called out, "Hello?" and Curtis emerged from the hallway with a smile. He was soft-spoken and friendly, wore a cardigan and walked with a bit of a limp. We made small talk while he showed me the guest room. Everything seemed normal until I stepped inside and heard the door click behind me. I turned around. Curtis had closed it, and I noticed, for the first time, a deadbolt on the outside. I stared at the lock for a second longer than I meant to. It wasn't subtle. Big, brushed metal, with a thick bolt and visible scratches around the edges, like it had been used a lot. Curtis caught my look and gave a little laugh. "Oh, yeah, I know that looks weird," he said. "It's just for peace of mind. The previous owners had a kid with special needs, so they used to lock the door at night, for safety." I nodded slowly, trying to act like that made sense. "Do you ever use it?" He shook his head. "Never. Not once. Honestly, I've been meaning to take it off, but I just haven't gotten around to it." He smiled again, then added, "If it bothers you, I can leave the door cracked tonight." That felt worse somehow. I thanked him and said it was fine, that I'd probably be asleep early anyway. He left me alone after that. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while, staring at the door. The bolt on the outside caught the hallway light just right, like it was waiting to be used. The room itself was oddly sparse, clean, but sterile. No art on the walls. Just a bed, a small dresser, and a desk pushed up against the corner. The window didn't open, painted shut from the look of it. There were marks on the sill, tiny scratches. I took a quick shower in the guest bathroom down the hall, and when I came back, the bedroom door was ajar. I was sure I'd closed it before. Not locked, just pulled shut. I stood there, wet hair dripping into the collar of my shirt, listening. Curtis wasn't in the hallway. I closed the door again and wedged my backpack against it. Not enough to stop someone from coming in, but maybe enough to slow them down. I got into bed fully dressed. I left my phone charging beside me, flashlight app open just in case. I couldn't stop thinking about the lock, about how quiet the house was. Every sound felt amplified. The hum of the fridge, a floorboard shifting, branches tapping against the window. At some point, I must have dozed off. When I opened my eyes again, the room was pitch black. No glow from the hallway. The door was closed, and which I thought I'd left slightly open. I sat up slowly. There was no sound, no movement. But something was different. I looked at my phone. 2:13 a.m. I flicked on the flashlight and aimed it toward the door. That's when I noticed the shadow on the floor. The faint sliver of light coming from the hallway, blocked at the bottom. Someone was standing outside my door. I didn't move. I barely breathed. The shadow stayed there, motionless, like whoever it was hadn't realized the light from the hallway gave them away. Or maybe they didn't care. I just stared at the bottom of the door, willing the shape to go away. Then slowly, like someone trying not to wake a child, I heard the click of metal. The deadbolt. They were locking me in. I jumped out of bed and rushed to the door, but by the time I yanked it open, the hallway was empty. No footsteps, no closing door. Just stillness, like the house had swallowed whoever was there. The bolt had been turned. I felt it shift when I'd opened the door. I left the door open this time, wide open. I stood in the hallway listening. Nothing, no creaks, no voices. Curtis's bedroom door, the last one on the left, was closed. I walked over and leaned close. I didn't knock, just listened. After about 10 seconds, I heard a low sound from inside. Breathing. Not snoring. Controlled. Awake. I backed away and returned to my room, heart thudding. I didn't want a confrontation, not in the middle of the night, not out here. I stuffed my things into my bag, shoved it out the window, and climbed out after it. The ground was cold, wet with dew. I ran barefoot to my car. The windows were fogged up, and for a second I saw something in the rear view, a shape in the window behind me. But when I turned around, no one was there. I didn't stop driving until I hit a main road with lights and cell signal. I pulled into a gas station and sat there, engine running, heart still racing. I kept looking at the back seat, expecting to see something, someone, shift in the darkness. I finally checked my phone. One message. From Curtis. You left your door open. Everything okay? Sent at 2:41 a.m. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen, wondering how long he'd been standing there before I noticed. Wondering how many other guests had stayed in that room with that lock. Wondering what would have happened if I hadn't woken up. I opened the Airbnb app to report the listing. It was already gone. Not unavailable. Gone. Like it had never existed. No trace of my booking. No receipt. Nothing. A few days later, I got a call from a private number. I didn't answer. They didn't leave a message. That night, I dreamed I was back in the room. Same bed, same locked window, but this time the door never opened. I was just there, trapped, waiting for something that never came. I started digging, trying to find the original listing again. Couldn't. But I remembered the address. I'd taken a photo of the driveway when I arrived. I looked it up. The property wasn't listed on Airbnb anymore. It had been delisted a year ago. Reviews stopped suddenly, and one of the last ones said, "Nice host, but the lock on the outside of the room felt wrong." I never found out who actually owned the house. The phone number I had for Curtis stopped working. It's like the guy just erased himself. Sometimes I think about how calm his voice was, how normal he seemed, and how somewhere out there there's a quiet house in a small town, still standing, still waiting, with a lock on the outside. I had a job interview early the next morning and didn't want to risk traffic delays. The company offered to put me up in a hotel just off the highway, about 20 minutes from their office. It looked decent online, no frills, but clean and quiet. When I checked in, the lobby was empty. Not just quiet, empty. No guests, no staff at the front desk until I rang the little bell. A woman came out from the back, smiled like it hurt to do so, and slid a key card across the counter. "You're our only check-in tonight," she said, nice and peaceful. She paused. Should be. That last part didn't sit right. I laughed nervously, like she was making a weird joke, but her face didn't change. I took the elevator up to the 3rd floor. The hallway was dim, carpet old and soft like it hadn't been vacuumed in days. My room was the very last one at the end. The room itself was fine. Cold when I walked in, but I cranked the heater and it started humming after a few minutes. Queen bed, desk, mini fridge that made weird clicking sounds every few seconds. Basic, but clean. I dropped my bag and sat on the edge of the bed. That's when I noticed something odd. The room across the hall had its door cracked open. Just barely. A thin sliver of darkness beyond it, like the lights weren't on inside. I hadn't seen any movement when I passed it. I went to the peephole and looked. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I opened my own door slowly, glanced across the hall again. The other door was shut now. I could have sworn it had been open a second ago. I tried not to overthink it. Maybe the door just hadn't latched all the way and swung shut. Still, I left the TV on while I got ready for bed. Something about the background noise made the silence easier to ignore. Around midnight, I turned the TV off and laid down. The heater had stopped humming, and the room was still. Too still. I stared at the ceiling, trying to fall asleep when I heard it. The elevator dinged. It was distant but clear, the soft chime echoing up the hall. I sat up slowly, listening. Footsteps followed, slow, uneven ones. They got louder, padding softly across the carpet. Then they stopped, right outside my door. I didn't move. I just stared at the door. The peephole was too high to look through without getting up, and I didn't want to make a sound. Whoever was out there wasn't knocking, wasn't pacing, just standing there. After maybe 30 seconds, I heard it. A slow, soft breath, right on the other side of the door. Then the doorknob twitched, just once, not a full turn, just enough to let me know someone was testing it. I stood up fast and slid the deadbolt into place. It made a loud metal click, and the breathing stopped. Silence again. Then the footsteps resumed, moving away, slow and unhurried. I waited 5 minutes before checking the hall. It was empty, but the elevator panel was lit up again, heading to a different floor. I went back inside, locked the door, deadbolt, latch, even wedged a chair under the knob. I didn't know why someone would try my door in the middle of the night, but I was done pretending it didn't bother me. I lay back down, but I couldn't relax. Every creak of the building, every mechanical sigh from the heater felt intentional, like the hotel was trying to cover something up. At some point, I drifted off anyway, not because I felt safe, but because my body just gave up. When I woke up, the room was dark again. No idea what time it was. My phone was dead, even though I'd plugged it in. I reached for the remote to turn the TV on, but it was gone. Then I noticed something else. The chair was no longer under the doorknob. The chair had been moved neatly back to the desk, exactly where it was when I checked in. The door was still locked, deadbolt engaged, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been inside, or worse, was still there. I tore through the room, checked under the bed, inside the closet, even behind the curtains. Nothing. But something was off. The mini fridge was slightly open, and one of the water bottles I brought with me was missing. I turned on every light in the room and kept them on. I sat in the corner with my back against the wall, eyes fixed on the door. It was like waiting for something to make a move I couldn't predict. At 3:17 a.m., the phone on the nightstand rang. I jumped so hard it fell off the hook. I stared at it for a second before picking it up. There was no voice, just breathing. I hung up without saying a word. Didn't even wait to see if they'd speak. I unplugged the phone from the wall and pushed the nightstand in front of the door as if that would do anything. I sat there until sunrise, exhausted and wired at the same time. As soon as it was light enough to see, I grabbed my things and walked out without showering or changing. The hallway was empty. The elevator was on my floor, already waiting. When the doors opened, I froze. Someone had scratched something into the metal panel inside. Sloppy, but clear. Not alone. I checked out at the front desk, but no one was there. Just a printed sign that said, "Thanks for staying with us." The bell didn't bring anyone out. I dropped my keycard on the counter and left. Back in my car, I plugged in my phone and waited for it to boot. The battery was at 74%. It hadn't died. It had been turned off. I checked my photos, my call log, everything. No signs of anything unusual, except one. There was a screenshot in my gallery I didn't remember taking. It was from the hotel's digital thermostat, set to 65-degree ROA. But what caught my eye was the reflection in the glass. A face, pale, wide-eyed, crouched in the corner of the room. Not mine. I never went to the interview. I don't even remember canceling. I just drove, for hours, until I saw lights and traffic again. A week later, I tried to find the hotel online to leave a review, maybe warn someone. The listing was gone. The address rerouted to a truck stop. The name didn't come up on any search. But sometimes when I check into a new hotel, I'll leave the TV on and wedge a chair under the door, just in case. Because I don't think I was the only guest that night, and I don't think they've checked out yet. If you've ever stayed somewhere that made your skin crawl, a strange hotel, a weird Airbnb, a cabin that didn't feel empty, tell your story in the comments. And if you'd sleep in any of the places you just heard about, you're braver than me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We'll leave the light on for you.